I do want to talk about, it's a conversation we've been meaning to have since the end of the year. It's really based around Cam Atkinson, but I think the Johansen stuff's pretty interesting too. Guys who we don't expect maybe to be here next year. And like, obviously Erik Johansen, I mean, he's going to retire or like whatever. Marc Staal, he got a paycheck to come hang out with his buddy Torts for a year and
they
play a few
straight up.
games.
Briere straight up said in the exit interview that Denis Gurianov and Marc Staal will almost certainly not be back. He did not mention Erik Johansen. However, Erik Johansen did not even stay for the exit interviews the day after the regular season ended. So I feel like that strongly hints that he will not be re-signing either.
Thanks, guys.
Good times. Like, that's awesome. I really appreciate it, dude. He's like, I'm not doing this shit.
I mean, the last person that did that, and this is actually very timely, the last person I can remember who did that was Jake Voracek. Jake Voracek in the 2021 season, he had more or less already been told by Fletcher that, like, hey, we're probably going to move you. I believe Jake had like a newborn baby over in the Czech Republic that he hadn't yet seen, and he got permission knowing that like he was done with the Flyers to basically, he got from what I had heard during that period, and Jake later confirmed it during that interview blitz he did a few months ago when he was back in town. He basically was on a flight back to the Czech Republic like an hour and a half after the final buzzer.
I'm obsessed
like
with
he
him.
just got the fuck out of Dodge.
I love him.
He's one of my favorite
His
people.
just like
in the
attitude of everything. I just really, I wish
we should all.
I just wish they could have built around those two players and made a good fucking.
Would have been nice.
All right, but no. Congrats to Jake. He's ending his career. Obviously,
he officially announced his retirement today, which is why it's timely.
It sucks under the circumstances where it's like his contract is, you know, in Arizona / Utah.
Well, it expires this year.
It expires.
That's why he can now officially retire.
And now he came out today. He had like 12 or 14 concussions over the course of his career.
The amount he must have like just not reported is wild.
Like, I can think of when he got Cronwalled that time and he had the like mummy hands. I can't think of another time where he got like laid the fuck out, and it's like 12 to 14.
It doesn't take that much
for a guy who like I loved Jake.
Yeah,
I consider him a perimeter player. Like, what do these guys actually deal with in terms of brain brain injuries?
Real bad.
I know we know better now, but this is shit that happened like a couple of years ago.
Well, the fact that he estimated 12 concussions, because apparently that's what he spoke to in the story, and we know that he didn't miss time 12 times
he
for
never
concussions.
missed games.
It just means that he was keeping track in his head of like, oh, that's probably a concussion. Whatever, I ain't gonna tell anybody.
Yeah.
That's the he played 77, 82 games a year. Like, he never missed time.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So Gurianov
also would not advise players to do that.
Please, if you have a brain injury, take a day off.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
or
two.
Maybe
two.
Or maybe 7 or 12 or 14.
Yeah.
However long it takes for your brain to start
see a
feeling
medical
normal.
professional not employed by your employer.
Yeah, see a medical. Yeah, exactly. That's a problem.
Or just see a medical professional at all. Because my
True.
guess is that Jake would probably get his bell rung, be sitting on the bench and be like, well, I feel loopy. And then the next morning be like, I feel okay. I guess I'm not going to tell them.
Yeah, probably.
So Staal, Johansen, that's obvious. Gurianov, I mean, they wanted to get a look at him.
They did not.
Really, it was just about moving on from another guy.
Yeah.
I think the way they looked at that trade was always the guy I will equate it to is Ville Leno. In that, like, there is a world where, you know, Jeff Carter never gets hurt and Ville Leno never gets a chance to have his breakout playoff run. You have him in the mix, and maybe if a couple things happen and he gets a shot and then he impresses dramatically, then he's part of this. He got a couple games. It's not like they didn't give him any shot.
Yeah.
He didn't show anything especially amazing, and it just didn't break in the way that allowed him to get a big look. He also didn't exactly bang the door down in terms of demanding a bigger look, and it's just probably not in the cards. He's probably going to go back to Russia, I would guess.
The times we saw him, I was like, oh, there might be something there, but not to the point of like, oh, well, we got to move on from Noah Cates. And really, where else was he going to play? You know, like, it was in a third guy on your third line or fourth line role. And there's one thing the Flyers are set on, it's those dudes.
Yeah.
Oh, we got so many dudes.
Yeah, like
for
there's
the bottom.
plenty of those dudes.
And also, Gurianov's not young anymore.
No, he's not.
This is
22.
not. This is not like a prospect. No. This is a guy who you're like, hey, maybe he like finds something. He didn't find something, and now you wave goodbye to him.
It was just like that was one of the more. There's 5 guys we're going to talk about. He's in the middle of the interesting scale.
Yeah.
So those are the dudes who are somewhat interesting, the 2 defensemen and Gurianov. Atkinson and Johansen are both interesting cases to me. The Ryan Johansen thing, Danny Briere said, like, I don't know if he can play hockey anymore, which is interesting.
I don't know
because he was playing hockey right up until the day he got traded to the Flyers.
I don't know if he wants to play hockey anymore.
But he ain't going to give up his money, and you only get 2/3 when you get bought out.
Yep.
So he's hurt. He's damn hurt. You can't buy out a guy who's injured. Is that just how this is going to play out? He's going to be LTIR'd for a year, probably.
I'm fine with that, honestly. Who cares?
It does seem like it's such a
or an injury settlement or something.
It's such a weird situation because there's so many things at play here. Number one, the fact that he was playing up until the trade and now suddenly he just can't play anymore. It's extremely suspicious.
Yes.
However, there is another side of this where the argument is that how many players are playing through things that in theory could be career ending.
If you were to see a doctor.
That they just push through because they're like, well, I like playing hockey. And then suddenly when like they get traded to a team that clearly doesn't want them and they get waived and no one claims them, then maybe it pops in their head like, well, why even friggin' bother?
Yeah.
Like that could be what it is where, because my understanding is Johansen broached the subject with the Flyers of like, hey, I'm willing to let bygones be bygones with John Tortorella and try to make this work if you guys give me a real shot. And the Flyers were like, nah, we're assigning you to the AHL. We don't want you with this team. And then at some point, he got a doctor to tell them, oh, no, I can't play. So the timing is very suspicious, but I do think it's plausible. Like, I don't think, let me put it this way. I don't think he just is paying a doctor to lie and falsify medical records and say that, hey, I have a serious shoulder injury. But I do think it's possible that he's been playing through some serious stuff. And now that he has come to the realization that no one in the NHL actually wants him, at least on his current contract, that he will just be like, well, instead of getting a buyout and playing a year on a league minimum deal, I will just take what's left of my money, nurse my injuries, and retire.
I mean, what are the odds that what happened to Ryan Ellis happened here? Like, he probably had a little something going on in the entire midsection of his body when he was playing in Nashville.
I think the Ryan Ellis thing is different because I know there will always be conspiracy theorists who will make this argument. I do not think that Ryan Ellis showed up to Philadelphia, decided he didn't want to play in Philly, and then it's like, oh, by the way, I'm injured, I can't play.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying that players
there was
play
something
through
a little
things.
the matter,
probably,
and then it went real wrong.
And then it went real wrong.
Right.
I think that's
saying.
absolutely
Like there was
happened.
probably a little something,
Yes.
and like you're saying with Johansen, there's probably a little something.
I just think with Johansen, more likely it's not that it got worse. What got worse was the realization that no one wants me.
Fractured spleen.
Also, simply put, if you are dealing with a chronic sort of injury, serious sort of thing that you can play through, you know what's easier to do? Dealing with it when you're flying in a nice, cushy, first-class seat than you are bouncing around on a fucking bus in the AHL. Yeah. Like, that's gonna make your desire to play through that considerably less. Yeah. And honestly, in this situation, like, listen, you signed a guaranteed contract. Good for you. This is one of them. I'm not going to be mad at the dude. Someone signed him to this contract.
Yeah.
But it does seem like he's got a little bit of dog in him and not the good kind.
Not the good kind.
No,
like the kind that makes John Tortorella not like you.
Yeah. There's something up for this.
If you listen to Colorado fans when they made this trade, they're like, good fucking riddance.
Yeah, they were like, thank God. Yeah. I think that this ends in one of two ways. It either ends with
Ellis Island.
No, it either ends with him spending the rest of his time with the Flyers on long-term injured reserve because he continues to have doctors look at him and say he can't play, his career's over. Or it ends with him passing a physical and then the Flyers buying him out this summer. I think it's one of those two things.
Guess what he's never going to do?
Wear a Flyers
jersey.
jersey.
Physical.
Yeah.
Guess what he's never going to do? Wear a Flyers jersey.
Yeah, no, he's never going to wear a Flyers jersey. And the last dude who is the most interesting of all of these is Cam Atkinson.
Samuel.
Man, it's just like time and place. I wish it could have.
I know. It would have been
He
nice.
seemed like a cool dude, and having him around to kind of be the. I know we've
Dad.
used this derogatorily in the past, but the professional best friend, kind of the Tortorella interpreter, if you will. Like all of that could have been beneficial. My man's done.
Yeah, he's done.
I hope he's not, but I do think regardless of whether he's done or whether he has one last year in him where he can finish out his NHL career on his terms, I don't think it's going to happen in Philadelphia.
It would be surprising. How do they navigate this? Is this a buyout situation? At 50%, would even anyone take that contract? I guess you can go 50 and then 50 of the 50 with another team. If you throw in a pick or something, they do have a ton of picks. How do they get out of this?
I guess the cap is going up. That said, and this is kind of the comparison I'll make, James Van Riemsdyk looks significantly less cooked last year than Cam Atkinson did this year.
$1 million.
And JVR got a 1-year, $1 million contract. So the idea that even if you retain 50% of Cam Atkinson's salary, that someone is going to view him as a $2.6 million a year player, I find it highly unlikely. I would think even if you're going to retain 50%, I would think you would probably have to toss in a draft pick. And why would you do that? Like, why are we going to rehash the Shane Gostisbehere thing when you're trying to, like, you don't need cap space that badly to the point where you want to be giving up assets to gain cap space. You could just buy him out.
And also the vibe from his comments at the end of the season felt very definitive. And all of those are like maybe situations. Like maybe you can find a trade partner. Maybe you can get rid of him. Atkinson's comments in the exit interviews felt very much like somebody who had been told already, you're not going to be here next year.
It sure seemed
and
like,
that's a buyout, in my opinion.
At the very least, it seemed like it was strongly hinted to him that he was no longer in the plan. If I had to guess, I think if we're looking at the three guys who are more or less dead weight on their books right now, which are Atkinson, Johansen, Cal Peterson, I would guess Atkinson gets bought out.
Yeah.
Peterson stays. He gets sent down to the minors. They get the $1 million in cap relief for sending him down. He stays throughout the length of his contract, and Johansen is on LTIR for the rest of his career. Yeah, that's what I think is going to be the way. So I think there will be one buyout, and I would guess it would be Atkinson.
Yeah,
that's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
We all silly like the mayor.